Hello everyone, welcome back to Local Liberty. This is Brian and Shane. We are here today to discuss the candidates that are running to become our next president.
Ooh, that's excitement.
The nominating process for candidates in the major parties is carrying forward in Connecticut on April 26th. This is an exceptional cycle for us, given that the nominations in either party are not totally locked up, which they typically are by the time it comes for our vote. So there's a lot more attention being paid this time around in Connecticut in the primary process. So Shane and I are going to share our thoughts on the various candidates.
I want to say before we start that I've been following the presidential races relatively closely ever since I was 18, and this is the most interesting one yet, because you essentially, not the front runners, but Trump is basically a third-party candidate running for Republican, and Sanders is not even a Democrat. He's he's an independent, and he's almost with Clinton. He's probably not going to win, but I think that's very telling that they can't actually run on a third-party platform. You can't do it. It doesn't work because of the entrenched two-party system. So these outsiders, have gotten very high. One's probably going to win, and the other one came close. I just find that interesting.
And that speaks to the general lack of contentment with the establishment, and that's been brewing for a long time. And that's the cycle that things go. You get unrest, and then some significant change occurs, and then unrest goes down.
It took a while though. Ross Perot, when I was a kid, was like the last time this kind of outsider was in there.
But Ross Perot got nowhere near the traction that Trump and Sanders have got this time around.
Sure, but he was in the debates.
Oh yeah,
and at one point he was ready doing fairly well in the polls the first time he ran. He was a significant presence in the race, and he was an outsider.
I don't think he was ever a front runner at any point.
That's true. But since then, there's been no other a non-establishment candidate that has been at the top. And now we have Trump definitely at the top. We'll talk about the process later. And we have Sanders who came close to the top, and they're not really representative of their party as a whole.
Right, but to my point, you bring up Perot, nothing changed. After he came and went, nothing really changed. So that's why that trajectory of unrest sort of continued.
Right.
It's continued since then. And that deliberate and that's why a guy like Trump and a guy like Sanders gets their time on the stage, because of just the trajectory of the state continues to be steady despite what individuals really want to happen in their lives. So what we can do is, I have a few thoughts I've written down, just things that I want to bring up around Mr. Trump.
Ooh.
And then let's just dive into
the Donald.
Anybody else that we want to discuss here. So I don't think I can come out and say that I support Donald Trump, in the sense that I'm really not interested in anybody being my president. I want to be my own boss, and I don't want. And Donald Trump is very much vying to be the boss. So in that sense, he's not my guy. However, there's some things that we need to thank him for. And just first, one of the reasons why he's even worth talking about, I think, is a lot of people that are no doubt bad actors, bad guys, they despise him. So it kind of comes down to that, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, in a way that that's really what got my attention, because I was not paying attention to much of this until around, right around the new year, when Trump's momentum really started picking up, and then he won a few of these primaries, and then the people just came out of the woodwork to every single media channel that was out there, every seemingly establishment candidate on both sides, it came out that this guy is the Antichrist. So if so many ugly people think he is so bad, then that person is at least worth looking at. And reason why he might have earned that attention, I think, might come down to the next 2 points of the things that, whether or not he is worthy of our support or whether or not he should be a president, here's a couple of things that he should be thanked for. He is totally bashing the political correctness momentum that has been building in a long way, where people are perceiving that political correctness is not about being nice, it's not about being tolerant, it's about control, and it's about suppressing thought and suppressing freedom is what political correctness is about. And Donald Trump has given a lot of people a lot of reason and courage almost to say, screw this, I don't agree with all this nonsense. And then the third part, where in particular, this is the one where he's really earned a lot of haters from the establishment, is his talking about foreign policy. And there's 4 things related to foreign policy where I think it's arguable you could say that Donald Trump is the least warmongering of all the presidential candidates that are running right now. He is the only one that is questioning why the United States must be the world police and why the United States must do things like the nation building and why regime change. He's the one that's questioning why is the United States doing these things. Those are excellent questions to be asking. He's also the only guy out of any candidate out there that has said, why are we part of NATO? NATO's mission was to deal with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union's been gone for a long time. Why are we still involved with NATO? And regarding that arena, he's also the only guy saying that we should be communicating with Russia rather than trying to further deteriorate our relationship with Russia. So all those things wrapped up in terms of the foreign policy arena, those are some things that whether or not Trump deserves anything else for all the other stupid crap he says, he deserves a moment of our thanks for getting these points into a large stage conversation.
You're bringing up things that he brought up as something positive because he happened to mention an issue. The biggest problem with Trump is everything is outcome. This is what I want to do, but he never tells you how to do it. He never tells you the process. It's just all outcomes. He has no content. There's zero content. He never actually lays out how to do anything. So even if you agree with him on all his positions, which are constantly contradicting themselves and don't make any sense and they change and evolve constantly, we have no record to actually know, well, what does he think? He says he was against the Iraqi war. Was he? I don't know. Is he on record with that? It's very difficult to tell. The problem is he has no content. There's nothing there. Even if you agree with these positions, he doesn't tell you how he's going to do it or how he's going to make things better. He said, I'm going to make a deal. What?
Well, that's not necessarily. I don't think that's beside the point, because it's not to say if he says we should talk with Russia instead of destabilizing nations on their border.
Right, but
then that doesn't mean the part about how. Yeah, that would be interesting as more detail. But the fact that he's simply saying in front of hundreds of millions of people, we should talk with another country instead of trying to start a war with them, that in and of itself is a good.
Brian, you are correct, but the guy spews so much stuff, contradictory things, where he says, I'm going to get rid of Obamacare, and then I'm going to replace it with national health care of another kind. I'm going to be non-interventionist. But then we're going to take care of the enemy, and we're going to go to the extreme level and torture their families too. I mean,
yeah.
You're saying you praise him for bringing this up, but he says so many random things. It's very low.
Yes,
you're saying a really low bar there, Brian.
You're speaking to his credibility,
right.
Which
no
I think is very low.
None.
As are all the other candidates.
No, I think the candidates have a bit more credibility than him.
No,
I'm not saying that
their credibility, in my
views,
are all low enough that it's not necessarily worth distinguishing between them. They're all vying for a position of supreme political power. That right there is damaging to their credibility. But again, when somebody brings things up in conversation, that just the fact that now all sorts of people are discussing something that they otherwise would never have discussed, that is a good thing. And again, you don't have to support or like the man
I'll give you
at
it, Brian.
all.
I'll give you it. It's we all know it's nothing. Who cares? But I'll give you it. Fine.
No, what you can give me
and it's just so small. This is it's so little.
No. How can you say we should talk to another country instead of starting a war with them? You're going to describe that as small?
That's good. But that is that's 2 sentences. All right, that's great.
Okay, let me put it another way.
I want policy that you're going to do and you're going to implement and how you're going to do it.
Now, why would you ask a politician for that when it's almost a given that everything they tell you within the election process, they're not going to follow through on? So who cares about the details? None of them are going to follow through on any of them.
Fine, but if you take that position, well then I can never listen to anybody. There's never any politician, including
That's not a bad position to
including
take,
Trump.
actually.
And so that undermines your own argument about Trump.
Again, this isn't about Trump. This is about the conversations that he is starting. There is no what other
He starts
candidate.
a lot of terrible conversations, though.
What other candidate besides? Well, there's a very small number, but name me a person that has gotten on a national political stage and said we shouldn't be part of NATO.
I don't know. Brian, like I
None.
said, that's so minor.
Again, you're calling our foreign policy minor when our foreign policy is potentially the most impactful thing that a president
He has no
can
foreign
do.
policy, though. All his when he's in the debates, he has no foreign policy. You're cherry picking things out that he says, which I could cherry pick if I actually went on Googled counter statements to everything he says. So you're like saying, you're supporting him. Oh, this is good, but then he probably contradicts himself like he does so many times. And the healthcare one was the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, well, yeah, we're gonna get rid of Obamacare, and then we're replaced with another socialized, system. It's the same. And there's numerous other things where it talks about intervention and non-intervention, and he kind of goes back and forth like, wait, what is his position? That's what I'm saying. So I could cherry pick any line from a politician. Oh, that sounds good in this context.
No, he has.
Anyways, I know you're not supporting
This
him.
is a general theme of if you are interested in a less warmongering candidate, believe it or not, Trump on the Republican side is no questions asked the least warmongering of the candidates that are still in the nomination process. And there's lots of people that I would consider to be very intelligent people that consider foreign policy the most important part of somebody's platform.
Right, but he has no foreign policy platform. It's all this nonsense and inconsistencies and contradictions. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, he does, absolutely.
And I don't know, and that's what I'm saying. I don't know that he is the most anti-war candidate because he makes statements like I was against the Iraqi invasion in 2003, but we have no way to verify them. We don't have him on record actually saying it in the past. It's hard to tell what he actually thinks. And then, like I said, he make one statement, and then he'll say something else, and then he'll pull back on it, and then he says the most ridiculous things about foreign policy, like, oh, well, to go after the terrorists, we need to actually go after their families. It's just complete. That's talk about wars of aggression. Let's go attack civilians. So Trump is just there's no substance. It's all style. And if you're interested in style and public speaking and making people interested, I think Trump's a fascinating character to watch. But if you're actually interested in content, he has no content. It's very difficult for me to judge what he would do because it's so confusing. There's no coherent ideology, but then again, none of the candidates usually do.
There's a guy that has an anti-war vibed sort of radio show. His name's Scott Horton. And I heard this recently. He sort of coined a law. It's Horton's Law, which says you can count on a politician during the election process to break all the good promises they've made and to keep all the bad ones. So that I generally think that's true, and you can treat Trump the same. And again, and I'm not saying this from a message of support. This is from a message of recognition of if you're interested in foreign policy as an important part of why you would vote for somebody, on the Republican side, Trump is the least warmongering of the candidates.
You know, Brian, now that you phrased it like that, probably true. But it's such a low standard.
It is a low
right,
standard.
But you're right, Cruz is more of a war, definitely.
They all are, and I mean.
No, Sanders is less so. He actually has a record that he actually voted against the invasion in 2003. Unlike Clinton systems, they'll go, well, yes, we can mess with this, we can mess with that, we can do this, we can do that, but you'll be better off for it. And it's an acceptable cost, an acceptable trade-off if we have to limit your freedom in a slight way here and a slight way there. Now again, Sanders is a mess. I'm just talking about, unlike you brought up superficial nonsense to me that Trump would never do and it has no process for. Sanders has significant, major issues that he has a record for and actually has shown consistency far beyond the average politician. Far beyond. That impresses me. Now, that doesn't mean I would vote for him. I guess I'd vote for him over Trump. Definitely, Trump's terrible. I'm not sure. But the point is, that's something to be recognized to me what you're bringing up to be recognized as
Again,
so
I think
minor.
I'm kind of surprised that an anti-war guy
He's not
is saying
anti-war.
that these. No, I'm saying you
Oh.
are an anti-war guy, and you're saying that these 4 points are trivial.
They're trivial because they come from Trump, who contradicts himself constantly. So it doesn't matter. So if someone says something good, hey, I want to end the drug war, and then another sentence, oh, we gotta get tough on those drug dealers. But he doesn't get credit for that.
No,
He gets no
he
credit.
has maintained a consistent theme of not being a belligerent agent to most of the
A
world.
consistent theme again. It's all style. It doesn't tell you anything. It's nothing. There's nothing there.
Yeah, he's campaigning. And again, let's go back to Horton's Law.
Horton's Law is bullshit. I don't believe in Horton's Law. Some guy makes some shit up.
So you believe what politicians say in the campaign?
No, I don't believe any politician says. But the fact that you're saying, oh, all the bad things they do, all the good things they don't. What? Based on what? What evidence do you have to fall through that?
I don't know, the last 100 years of campaigning versus what political actors have done after being
And plenty of
elected?
people actually go through the policies they say.
How many presidents have?
A lot of them. There's no way they.
Yeah, no, the good ones or the bad ones. Which policies, I mean. They break the promises about the good stuff. They keep the promises about the bad stuff.
Well, first of all, let's pull back here. You're labeling good or bad. So, for example, Obamacare, which you don't like, correct?
Correct.
People do. So Obama passed that, and he said he would do that. Now, in the future, he's probably going to be recognized as an innovator and catching up with the rest of the world. In the future, as people
I'm
move.
not so sure about that.
If you look at how Western civilization is moving forward historically and the trends that are happening, this is the movement we're going towards, right? This is what the majority of the population thinks. You know, that they want these kind of ideas to be put forth. They want people to be safe. And I know we can get to a debate about, well, yeah, they want that, but then the things they use to achieve those goals don't work. Sure, but it's the idea. And for them,
Good intentions aren't enough.
right, but you're saying, like, that's the thing that he said he would do and he did it. Now me, here's something that would go with Horton's Law. He was going to be the candidate that wasn't going to persecute the medical marijuana growers. Oh, I'm going to leave those people be. The drug war is bad. Oh, yeah, maybe we should think about that. And then he had a worse record than George W. Bush on cracking down on medical marijuana clinics, licensed clinics, legally allowed, arresting way more people than George W. Bush did. Astonishing flip-flop. And yes, he did change his tune in the last year and a half of his presidency. But the harm that he did to those individuals hasn't gone away. That's still there. Those people lost their businesses. They lost their way of living. And now they have a crime on their record, a felony. So that's going to prevent them from getting in the workforce because of all the problems you have in the criminal justice system. Those people's lives are destroyed over this bullshit drug war thing that he said he was going to pull back on. That it would be an example that's just sickening to me.
As you said, Horton's Law.
Yeah, but that's a loss, dude. What's the next one? What are you on next, Brian?
I don't know. Who's left? We've covered Clinton. We've covered Trump. We've covered Sanders. I don't even know what to say about Kasich. I mean, although here's one thing
boring.
Here's one thing I will say: the way the Republican nomination process is shaking out, we could be wasting our time talking about Trump and Cruz and Kasich. When this goes to as it very possible that it could go to a contested convention, meaning no candidate has enough delegates to win an outright nomination in the first round of ballot casting. They can introduce anybody. They could nominate anybody at that point.
Really?
And then we really get to see.
They don't have to be already running.
No, they could nominate anyone. Then we really get to see what insider politics comes down to, and it's gonna have all the high drama. It's gonna be glamorous. It's gonna be suspenseful.
I love it.
We're gonna be sitting at the edge of our seats. Who's the candidate? Who got the nomination? But at the end of the day, especially if it goes through that process, we can pretty much be guaranteed it is not going to be somebody that's going to rock the boat.
No, right.
So it's going to come down to, which same old guy is going to be at the helm for the next 4 years. And there's a lot of talk. You talked about some of the conservative policies of Hillary Clinton. That there's a lot of neocon Republicans that if they can't get their way with the candidate they want, they'll be happy with Clinton. She's a middle of the road, keep everything running, keep the state growing, centrist in all the wrong ways sort of candidate. So there's a possibility that they will bring somebody out that's just a total schmo, that's nobody likes, nobody wants, that, you know, they'll just make it even easier for her to win. So yes, it's interesting to see what's going to shake out of this, but at the same time, if you just feel disgusted by all of this, don't feel ashamed, don't feel bad about that. That is a natural, very understandable, very reasonable response to the madness that we currently run our large and very diverse nation of 300 plus million people around this crazy process we call this national presidential election. Anything else you'd like to close with, Shane? That's all I got.
We covered the major candidates. I think another time we should do a segment on the minor candidates, because every year there's other parties that are running: the Green Party, the Libertarian Party, Constitutional Party, maybe the Socialist Party. I remember when I was in the 2000 election, I watched a debate for the third party candidates. I had a bunch of random people on there. I had Harry Brown on there. It was, it's interesting to hear these people. They're usually way outside the mainstream. They had no chance, generally speaking, but their views are interesting. I've never voted for a major party candidate at the top. I'll vote a third party for president, because I can't vote for somebody that I don't share any views with. I was having a talk with someone about, what if it was Trump versus Hillary? Would you vote for Hillary as a defensive vote against Trump? No, they really hated Trump, and I really hate Trump too. It's terrible, but I don't like Hillary. She has a horrible record. I'm like, I wouldn't vote for either. I'm like, I can't. I couldn't do that. They do.
One final thought: if none of the above was on the ballot, that is where I think we would see some actual change. And not to say that, we wouldn't have a president or whatever. It would be, if people could actually vote none of the above, I think voter turnout would increase drastically.
You think so?
And yes, and I think in Massachusetts, I think, has that and on their ballots, that if...
But you could write in, can't you? Isn't that always an option? Am I incorrect?
Maybe it is, but that's also not quite as explicit as if you have an option.
Nuts. Remember when D's Nuts got 15% in the polls? So ridiculous. I'd vote for D's Nuts.
If none of the above, if you were left with... Because that's really what freedom ultimately is the freedom to opt out. Is if your choice is between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and you say, you know what? No thanks, none of the above. Try again, get somebody better. Maybe it'll take 15 years before we actually got a presidential candidate elected, and that's probably for the better. But anyway, that is all I think we have to say on the topic of this year's presidential election process.
We got more to say. Just
for the major candidates.
In the future episodes, we'll have more to say.
The primaries are coming up. That's all we have to say in regards to the candidates that are left in this primary process. April 26th, this video may reach you after that, but April 26th is our primary for the two major parties in Connecticut. So thanks for listening, everybody. This has been Brian and Shane at Local Liberty. You can check us out on Facebook and YouTube. And we hope to hear from you, and let us know if you have any comments or thoughts on this topic or anything else that you would like us to discuss. We are always looking for, in particular, local action. That's what we want to key in on. So take care. Thanks for listening.